You have a busy schedule, you have kids, you have other priorities, commitments, but just being here and hearing you speak is such an honor, and I feel so honored having everyone here to hear Sarah speak, and thank you, Sarah, the floor is all yours.
No, thank you so much, Rosanna. Rosanna is always so nice and welcoming. It was the music? Sure, of course. I'll just wait. Thank you. I love Google stuff. Imagine if the kids were like Google.
Yeah, they love it.
So tonight we're here to speak about Chanukah. This is such a special holiday. I love this holiday, not because, we have the gift, because that's not even like a Jewish custom to receive gifts. But the Chanukah holiday gives us so much hope. It teaches us that there's never a moment of despair. There's always something to look forward to, and there's always something that you can actually change. And the women, that's why she wanted to do a women's class, and I said it's perfect for Chanukah, because Chanukah is all about the woman. If you look at the Gemara, Shabbat, if you look at Rashi, the commentary, if you look at Tosfot, if you look at all the Gemara that talks about Chanukah, it's all about women. First of all, it started, and I'm sure you know that story, but it's good to remind ourselves. It all started when the Greeks were putting their influence on the Jewish people. And at first, people were unfortunately accepting it, in the sense that, of course, they didn't agree with it, but no one was really fighting it very strong. It's unfortunately, for me, sometimes it reminds me of our days. There's some things that we don't like, and we still live with it, and we don't say too much. Don't shuffle things. Like, don't make too much sound. It's okay. You know what? Hide your Magen David, hide your kippah. It's okay. Don't bother people. But I believe Chanukah teaches that it's the opposite. It's when you own who you are that people respect you even more. And that's the whole story. And that comes from a woman. That's why Chanukah, one of the roots of Chanukah is chinuch. And chinuch, the education, comes from women. And what is a woman specifically connecting to that holiday? It's because to be a chinuch, you have to take a stance. When you something, there's no, like in chinuch, there's no part. There's no, it's okay, we don't, it's good or it's not. You have to be clear with yourself. And we see that in education. There's nothing worse in a behavior of a child than if you tell him, I don't know. Some of you know, I have a child who has autism, Baruch Hashem. And I know it's one thing I've learned when he had the worst behaviors is when I was saying, I don't know. He was like, Mom, can I get that? I was like, I don't know. Bam, I had an explosion, a huge tantrum. If I say yes, or if I say no, even if I say no and he's not happy 2 minutes, but the no is clear in his head, But when I said maybe, that's when I had issues. And chinuch is something that there's no maybe. When you teach your children, whatever you say, yes or no, stick to it. You need to have confidence what you do. So one woman understood that very clearly. She saw that what was happening, there was a ruler at that time that abused every Jewish woman. The night before the wedding, he would actually take them in his palace, do whatever he wanted, and then return them to their husband the next day, to their future husband. And people were afraid to say something. They're like, that's the price we have to pay. Until this daughter, her name was Hannah, she was actually the daughter of the father of Matisiyahu, the first Maccabee. She was his daughter, and she said, no, we cannot accept this. She went to the Beit HaMidrash when all the rabbis were, she undressed herself. And then all the rabbis obviously said, we can look at her, right? She's naked. She said, my nudity bothers you? But it doesn't bother you that it's exposed to that ruler? That it doesn't bother you? And she forced them to take a stand. It's like she didn't give them a choice. She went to a point that it was so clear that there was no choice. And we go into the story and we see another moment when we have a woman taking a stand. Yehudit, that we all know the story. Yehudit and Olofan, that she went and she pretended she liked him and she brought the beer and the alcohol and the cheese, and then when he fell asleep, she cut his head and everyone was scared because she was with the head of their ruler. And we continue, we have the Hannah and the 7 sons, that how she taught her children to be strong. So we see wherever you look, you see women actually holding the fort. And that's why we understand the custom of women not working 30 minutes after the lighting of the Chanukah. And also the halacha that if there's a woman alone in a home for any reason, she has to also light a Chanukah. If there is no man, she has to do it. So we see the importance of the woman, how they connected to that Chag. Now, why the woman thought it was so bad not to let the influence of the Yevanim, of the Greeks, go into their children? Because they understood, when you think about it, you say, Greece was not that bad when you think about it. They were educated, right? They brought us the philosophy, like philosophers. They brought us sports, the Olympic Games. We have to thank them for that. So they brought some good things, right? When you think about it, it's not that bad. But when you really think about it, what you realize is that when you have these values, without a Kadosh Baruch Hu, without a holy goal, you lose yourself. At the end, you have no morals. And look, the world that we live in. Mamash. People, they create rules, they create ideas, and at the end, they're confused. I was talking yesterday to my friend, she has kids in public school. She was telling me almost how they prep the kids to be something else that they're not. It's like almost if the kid is not different, it's something is wrong with him. Like to be straight is a problem. Like you have to be, you're sure you're not gay. Like things like this. I was telling her, really? She showed me the material. I was like, what? I was shocked. The kid is 11 years old. And I was like, this is the world we live in. And we see that hint already in the word Yavan. Yavan, you write it Yud, Vav, Nun, Sofit. The way it's, the letters, I wrote them to you so you can see, it goes down. You first have the Yud, it's high, then you have the Vav, then you have the Nun. It goes down. Even the way the word was written, you know that every letter in Hebrew has a meaning. It's not just a letter. So we see that Yavan is something that will take you down. It's not something that will uplift you. That's when you know it's wrong. When you do something and you finish down, when you finish lower than what you started, you know it's not for you. And that's what we learned from these women. They understood that. They took matters into their hands. And Baruch Hashem, they succeeded. They won this battle. So when we look into that, we understand now the power of the women. But we also understand, when we look at the holiday of Chanukah, we see why are we celebrating this holiday. So people are going to tell you the battle. We say it like in every day when we do the Amidah, when we say Birkat Hamazon, in the prayer, we say we were a small people, a small number, and we fought a big number, and we still won. So that was very special. But the way we celebrate it actually completely different. We don't celebrate it by celebrating a military victory. No one mentions it really in the halacha. If you go into the Gemara asks the question, Gemara Shabbat. The question is, what is Chanukah? Why is the Gemara asking the question? Obviously the Gemara knows what's Chanukah. There's a lesson there. And the Gemara continues. The Gemara mentions quickly, briefly, the victory of the, like Maccabim, of the military. And the Gemara goes pages, discussions about the kad, the special oil that was found. And that lasted for 8 days instead of 1 day. And we can ask ourselves, think about it. Imagine our Chayalim going into Lebanon, or after the 1967 war in Israel, after so much battle, after all the courage and the bravery, coming back home and lighting a candle, and all we talk about is the candle. Why we don't talk about the actual victory? It's something special to be celebrated for. The Gemara is asking a very profound question. It's not just any question. The Gemara is really asking, what does it mean to us? What today Chanukah means to me? And that's the real question. And one of the first reasons that we have to explain why this candle is so important, it's because the military victory, it's never something that lasts forever. Unfortunately, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Look at this, October 7th. You ask any Israeli, any Jewish person in the world before October 7th, how strong is the Israeli army? How strong is Tzahal? What would they have answered? So strong. The Arabs are not going to do anything to us, right? Everyone was so proud of themselves. And what happened? And for Hashem Yishmo, catastrophe happened. Why? Because when you start relying only on yourself and you forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's when it goes down. Always to remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Another reason that is very important is because military victories depends also very often on our merits. We see that from already Moshe Rabbeinu. When he was fighting in the desert, they would put his hands up and he would win. They would put his hands down and he would lose. What does it mean? Is that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose when it's just military. You have to pray HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to ask for a lot of zchuyot, a lot of merits, but it's not something that lasts. The Maccabim themselves Do you know how long they lasted once they won? They stayed about 200 years in Eretz Israel. After that, the Romans came, destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, and exiled them. So even their military victory that we celebrate, that we do Chanukah, didn't last. What lasted? The oil, the flame. Because once you light the Jewish neshama, once you light the Jewish soul, once you light that flame, never ever goes away. And that's why when you look into the halacha, we see that we celebrate for 8 days. But if you're good in math, even if you're not, any third grader, second grader will know the answer. The first day, that was not a miracle because we know we had enough oil for 1 day. So if it lasted 8 days and you remove 1 day, how many days should have Chanukah lasted? 7 days. We only had 7 days of miracle, but we last 8 days. We do it. Why? Because what was so powerful in the first day is that they knew that the light, they knew that it won't last. They knew it. They still did it. And that teaches us perseverance. That teaches us that you have to try. And especially us women, there is something very powerful in that idea. Sometimes in our lives, we don't feel we're enough. We don't feel we're worth it. We don't feel we're good enough. Sometimes we don't even want to try because we don't value ourselves. And we say, you know what? I can't do it. It's not for me. Oh, this woman, she's superwoman. Not me. Not at all. We are all capable. That's what's celebrating in Chanukah, is that they knew it wouldn't last, but they still did it. We live in a world when we celebrate success. We do, oh, this guy is so successful, he's so rich. No one talks about how much effort he puts in. No one cares. It's what the result is. Chanukah teaches us something completely different. The Jewish idea is how much effort, how much do you try something? It doesn't matter about the end result. It doesn't matter what's going to come out of it. Have you tried enough? And that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Rab Zushe Anipoli used to say that when he would die in heaven, in Gan Eden, they won't ask him, like, were you as good as Moshe Rabbeinu? No, they would ask him, did you do what Reb Zushe was supposed to do? Were you as good as Reb Zushe was supposed to be? Meaning, stop trying to put yourself in goals and things that you're not going to attain. It doesn't matter. Put something that you can do. Believe in yourself. Believe in that light. Your problem, like your job, is to light it for 1 day. Let Hashem do His job, and He will help you for the next days. And that we have to work on ourselves is because it's so easy, especially in this world when we're bombarded in social media, this and that. And look, I laugh so much. Sometimes people come to me and they tell me, "Oh my goodness, I wish I had like a marriage like her." And me, I know that person, and I know she's struggling in her marriage. I know because she talks to me. I'm not going to say anything. And this person sees her on Instagram and she believes she has the best, amazing life. You don't know. Like, what you need is not like to look like someone else. What you need is not like to, what you're going to be. It's, what are you today? Who are you yourself? No, this life, this little oil. What are you like? Take care of that day, that 1 day, 1 day at a time. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu take care of the other days. And every day we need to come. Every day we need to push ourselves for that 1 day. 1 day. But we give our best. That's what they did. They did their best. They didn't just, they could have let any oil. You know that halachically, they could have used any oil. Halachically. Because there's an halacha that explains that when everything is impure, automatically you have to consider it pure because how are you going to do? There's no other choice. So it's an halacha, okay? Then we can go into the details of the halacha, it's something else, but that's one halacha. So if you think about it, they could have said, okay, we're tired. We just fought for 3 years, they had their fight. Hey, enough. Time to whatever oil. No, they kept trying to find that oil because they wanted to show that you never give up on your values. You never give up of believing in yourself. That's one beautiful idea. And there's another idea. Since we're celebrating that light and we're lighting the candles, to remember the menorah of the Beit HaMikdash, then it should be exactly the same. But we see there are differences. It's not the same at all. The menorah had 7 branches. And it would be lit all the time together at the same time. And it would be during the day. What do? We light at night. We light 1, and the next day 2, and the next day 3, and we add every night. And we have 8 lights, not 7. So why so many differences? If we're supposed to celebrate that miracle, it should be the same. We should all have the 7, like menorah, the picture that we know. But we don't. There's differences. Because we have to understand that different times require different skills from us. In the temple, it was a very special time. It was a time of peace. When we're in the Beit HaMikdash, it was a time of peace. Women, they did not miscarriage. Can you believe something like that? Beautiful. They would get pregnant and keep the baby healthy. That was one of the miracles. Be'ezrat Hashem, every woman who needs a baby this year have a baby in good health. Be'ezrat Hashem.
Amen.
Amen, amen. But you see that idea that it was a time of calm and happiness. Another thing in the Beit HaMikdash, the light of the menorah was actually going into the world. The way of the windows of the Beit HaMikdash were built was for the light to go from inside out. But today when we need light, what do? We open the curtains, right? We open the window. We want the light to come from out to us. Different. So what we learn is that in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, we didn't need extra skills. We didn't need anything special because it was a time of quiet. So it was okay to light all the lights together. It was okay to light it during the day. That light was enough to light the world. It was good enough. But when Chanukah came, our lives, our spiritual lives were in danger at that moment. Spiritual because if they wanted to convert in the idea, they could have, right? But spiritually, we couldn't. Like they would kill our people by killing our mitzvot, by killing who we are, our essence. So when someone is coming to actually attack your essence, you have to fight with everything. What we call mesirut nefesh. You have to sacrifice yourself. You have to give whatever you have inside. You have to give and share it with the world. Reminds me of a story that I heard from my sister not long ago. She was telling me in Russia, there was a lot of poverty for the Jewish people. Especially like they didn't let them do a lot of jobs, and especially the country, the way the communist was like set up, was very difficult. And there was a father and a son who lived together, and the father was fighting with his son because they had only one coat in the house, and the son needed to go outside to work. And the son was telling his dad, "I'm sorry, Dad, but I need the coat to work. It's freezing outside. It's like, I don't know, minus 40. I cannot go without a coat, please." And the dad was saying, "My son, I love you, but I'm in the house all day and it's so cold. I need the coat. I'm old. I need the coat for myself." And they're fighting with each other. They keep fighting. They don't know what to do. As good Jewish people do, they go see a rabbi. They went to see the Rav, and everyone brings this argument, and the Rav is like, what am I going to tell them? He says, "You know what? The more I think about it, halachically, the son should have the coat because he's going out to work and he can bring money to Be'ezrat Hashem, pay for the heat and for the food. So it's better that he goes and both of you starve. There's no choice. Give him the coat." So they go home. The next morning, he wakes up to go to work. He puts the coat on and he's like, "Huh? Who did I win? My dad? I won my dad? What, I'm going to leave my dad freezing all day? Me? I can't do that." So the son goes to his dad and says, "Dad, I'm so sorry for having you go through all of this yesterday. Take the coat. Keep the coat for you." And the dad says, "My son, I thought about it all night. How can I ask you to give me the coat when you're going to be outside in the cold, freezing? No, please, my son, take the coat." And again they're fighting. "Take the coat. No, you take the coat. No, you take the coat." No, you take. And they both fighting. And again they say, "What are we going to do?" They go see the rabbi. Another time the rabbi says, "Why, you like me so much every day?" They're like, "Rabbi, please help us. We don't know what to do." And they each bring their arguments again. The rabbi says, "You know what?" He says, "I just thought about it. I have a coat upstairs that I don't use, an old one. Let me give it to you. Problem solved." He goes, gets the coat, gives it to them. The son turns to the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, yesterday I came here with the same question. Why didn't you think about your coat? Just today?" The rabbi thought about it. He says, "You know what? You're right. Yesterday, I was the only one. Yesterday you were thinking only about keeping. So in my subconscious, I also thought about keeping my coat. Today, you both want to give. That inspired me. I also want to give." And I was thinking about that, and I was saying, how many times in our lives, right? We're like, me doesn't give me, and then my husband and my thing and my friend. Do we want to give ourselves? Do we even think? Be honest with yourself. Do you give? You want to give? The light is something beautiful. The more you share, the more light you have around you. Never takes it away from you. Never. Right? Give everyone a candle. What did you lose? Nada. And a tiny bit of light pushes away the darkness. Actually, darkness is an absence of light. Darkness in itself doesn't exist. It's just when you take the light away, you have darkness. All you need to do, bring back this light. How do you bring back the light? You actually, oh sorry, how you bring back the light is actually by giving to others, by doing this mitzvah. I grew up with my parents in France, and I was about to say you know them, but obviously it's your grandparents. My parents, they were sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe to France 45 years ago in the city called Grenoble, in the Alps. It's beautiful. Like we're surrounded by mountains. And like every Chanukah, my parents started sending like trucks with donuts and Chanukah, sending bachurim, like little young guys, to all the station, like ski station, doing like giving donuts, giving Chanukah. You have no idea how many people we were able to touch that way. People who come and didn't even know it was Chanukah. Or like we would go into the city with music and the Chanukah on top, and everyone would like, imagine like in a mountain city, like no one knew. And people would love this holiday and they would come to us. And what we used to do is go to apartment buildings. There's a lot of apartment buildings in France. And we would look at names of people that sounded Jewish, and we would go to them and knock and say, do you want some donuts? And you know it's Chanukah tonight. And we would give, sometimes it was awkward, sometimes it was amazing because people would give money to the kids. So we were like so happy. And we would do that. Sometimes we were so ashamed that we grew older, you know, teenagers. But it was so much fun and so much sharing. I've always seen my parents share, Baruch Hashem. So one night, we go and we knock at this apartment building, we see names and we see marks. And my mom says, this is Jewish. My dad says, marks? I'm not sure. My mom is like certain, like when she knows, she's like, this is Jewish. We knock. So we like ring the, like it was an interphone or whatever it's called. We call and she answers. She's like, who's this? She says, it's the rabbi and his wife. Okay, I did not order a rabbi. And she's like, no, but it's Chanukah. We brought Chanukah. We brought donuts. I said, that's so nice of you, but I'm not religious. We're like, okay, but it's cold. We just want to share with you the donuts. Can we come in? She said, okay, just come, give me the donuts and leave. So we go up to her apartment. She opens the door. The house is full of Buddha. Big Buddha, small Buddha, yellow Buddha, green Buddha, any Buddha like this that you know. They were like this, Avodah Zarah, all around the house. And my dad is already like telling my mom, I don't want to go in. My dad is like, Avodah Zarah. My mom says, Jewish soul, let's save her. It's okay. So she looks at my parents and she's like, Jewish. Buddha all over. She decided that she was a Buddhist. She didn't want to be Jewish anymore. And she explains to my parents what at that moment. She tells my parents her son died and she was really upset at Hashem. So she said she's going to go to the Buddhist. She found solace with them. And she decided to be calm, quiet. And she decided she's a Buddhist now. So my mom and my dad said, but you're a Jewish neshama. You're a Jewish soul. You're Jewish all of your life. There's no way. You need, my dad and my mom, they keep telling, you need to light the light of Chanukah. And she's like, I don't want to. I said, but you just do it because of your Jewish soul. And I tried to talk to her. And at the end she said, you know what? She gives them a challenge. She said, I'll let you light the Chanukah with me, but you don't touch my Buddha. Do it. My dad said, okay, we can go next to the window. She said, yes. I said, okay, do it. She thought my parents would not do it. My dad said, you know what? A little light pushes away all the darkness. Well done. So we go to the window. My dad sings and she starts crying. Bawling. And she's crying and crying and crying. And my parents, like, my mom hugs her. And she starts talking about her son, that her son actually loved Akadosh Baruch Hu. And my mom says, so you should honor his neshama. You should honor him. Also, from that day on, she became so close to my parents. She threw my mom at a pleasure going back and destroying all the Buddha with her. They took everything out. She became religious. All her kids became religious. And they moved to Israel, to Bnei Brak. until today. Baruch Hashem, she passed away 2 years ago, the mom. And it's been like, we've been so close to her for like years. I remember she taught us crochet with my sisters.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. She was Jewish?
Yes, and she was blood, everything. Father, mother, whatever you want.
But she knows she's a Jewish.
She knew she was Jewish. She was just upset at Hashem. She needed someone to help her connect back with Hashem. My parents were that messenger.
Wow.
And that's the idea, is that you don't always realize when you share something, when you give something, you don't always realize how much light you share with someone else. I'm going to tell you another story that happened this past summer. My older sister, I'm number 2 in the family, so number 1, I was always number 2 my whole life. Number 1. So my number 1, she
My
was...
heart's your number 1. So.
Okay, I'm good. I was about to say my house. And my sister, she visited my parents. She was in France this summer, and she sees someone who's looking for my parents' shul. She's like, "Do you know the shul of Rav Lachiani?" So my sister is like, "Sure, of course, it's my dad." She says, "Oh my God, I remember you." My sister is like, "Okay, who are you?" And my sister says, "How do you know my dad?" She says, "Oh, you know, I'm not Jewish at all, but your dad is so special. Your mom is so special." And she's like, "Okay." She said, "What? You don't know me? You don't know the story? Your dad didn't tell you?" She's like, "No, my parents, they have so many stories, but they're very humble." So, and my sister said, "What's the story? I want to hear, please." They didn't have the key to get in, so they had to wait at a cafe until my dad arrived. So she sat and she told her a story. She said, "You know that my husband died a few months ago, and my husband was Jewish, but he was married to me, a non-Jew, and our children are non-Jewish, and he lived his whole life as a non-Jew, not doing nothing. But 45 years ago, when your parents arrived in Grenoble, that's where I'm from, they found us, and they found out that my husband was Jewish. And every Friday, your mom would make him a challah, and your dad would come to do tefillin. And every Friday, my husband couldn't say no. He said yes only to your father. And for years, we were neighbors. Your dad would bring the challah and the tefillin for years. And then we lost contact. We moved out of the city. We went to like a suburb or whatever. We lost contact. And my husband, before he died, he made me swear one thing. He said, "For this rabbi who came and cared about me, I promise that I want to be buried as a Jew. So I only ask you one thing. When I die, bury me as a Jew." When he died a few months before, she didn't remember. She couldn't find. She looked everywhere until she found the rabbi, and she found my parents' school and Bet Chabad, and then she found them. And my father, within a day, arranged everything, and he was able to give him a gvura, like a burial as a Jew. And that day she came back because my father asked her to get ner neshama, you know, that you put on the walls, like Sfaradim, they like to do that. And every year, my father looks, make sure that everyone who needs a Kaddish, my father said Kaddish for him for the whole year. And every year, everyone who needs a Kaddish, they remember, and that's why she came. From 45 years ago, challah, and like tefillin of light. How my father would know that would make a Jew get a Jewish burial? How would you? You don't know. You never know. There's another story I always tell, because for me, it concerns me. So it really touches me, that story. But to show you, you don't know the impact that you have on life. You don't know the impact of a kindness that you do. You don't realize. A few years ago during COVID, like 4 years ago, I think, or 2020 was 2021, COVID, we couldn't see each other. We couldn't meet with anyone. So people started having shiurim through Zoom. And I was asked from people in France, "Can you give us like shiurim through Zoom?" So I used to, like once, twice a week, I would go on a Zoom and I would talk to the computer. I would talk. And I would not look at who was on the Zoom or not the Zoom. Honestly, first of all, I didn't have time. I had to look at my notes. I had to whatever. I was concentrating in my class, and I would be done. I would log off, and Shalom and Israel. I had to take care of my kids. It was Zoom, everyone at home. So I did that many times. And one day, I tell a story on this Zoom. She said, "I want you to talk about Taharat HaMishpacha, when a woman needs to go to the mikveh. I want you to talk about it." I was like, okay. I was like, "Sarah, fast, the story." And because when you need the story, that's when you forget them. And I was like, okay, I know. I said, "I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me and my mom years ago." Years ago, I was a teenager. I think I was maybe 14 years old. And it was the summer, and in France, the summer, it's Mama Shabbat is so late. It's like 10 p.m. Yeah, it ends at 11
So
sometimes.
what time is the Abdallah? Like 11?
Oh, 11:30.
Wow.
The little ones, they usually sleep through, they like do Abdallah in the morning. It's mamash really, really late. So it was one of these summers, and my father cannot make his shul wait until 10. My father waits at Tzet HaKochavim when it's really night to pray. So what he does, prays with the tzibur, with everyone, and then at home, we stop between the fish and the meat, and my father finishes whatever he has to finish to pray after the night. It's like a Chabad, it's very important for them to wait after the night. So it was between the fish and the meat. My father is doing davening and my mom is not happy. And I see her face. I'm like, what's going on? She says, there was a woman who was supposed to come to mikvah tonight and she didn't come. And it's not good. You don't push your mikvah. So I think I want to go to her house and tell her to go to the mikvah. It was like 10:30 at night. I'm like, Mom, are you serious? But you know, she knows my mom. My mom, Baruch Hashem, and my dad, they're fully for Torah and mitzvah. I don't know how to explain. It's like Esh, like the fire of Chanukah. It's my parents, Baruch Hashem. My mom said, we need to get her to the mikvah because we don't let a woman push the mikvah night. It's so important. We don't. I said, okay. Yalla, I'll go with you. Just calm down. 10:30 p.m. we start walking in the streets. We go to this woman's house and we had she lived in the second floor and we're like, Patricia, and we call her, remember? And people come to the window like, shut up, quiet. And my mom is like, it's okay, it's for mitzvah, Patricia. Finally, Patricia comes to the window and she's like, Madame Layani, like, Geveret Lachiani, like, what are you doing here? She's like, Patricia, you didn't come to the mikvah. She's like, I'm upset with my husband. I fought. I don't care about the mikvah. My mom said, my love, I came all this way for you. You come down. I don't care if you're upset with your husband. Mikvah. And she said, oh, okay. You cannot say no to my mom. You don't say no to my mom. She comes down. It's dark. We go to the mikvah. There's no light. At that time, there was a bar next to my parents' shul and mikvah. So my mom goes into the bar. Oh, it's still there, the bar? No, it was on the other side. Where the laser, there was a bar. So she goes there, she gets a guy who agrees to come put the light on, or whatever. She cannot even tell him put the light. She's like, we need to go, and there's no light. She looks at him until the guy understood. Finally, the light is on. She goes into the mikveh. We walk her back home, and she goes home. And Patricia, she had two girls that were already older, like 7 years old. And she was trying for years to have another child, and she had secondary infertility. She couldn't get pregnant. 9 months later, Patricia gave birth to Idan, a little boy. 9 months later of that story. And I'm talking to the camera, right? I'm talking to the computer, and I remember that story. And I say that story, I log off, I say bye everyone, shalom, I close. 9 months later, my mom calls me from the shul. And I hear, I don't know, my daughter knows how to do the you and everything from Moroccan. I'm like, there's a party, like, what's going on? She said, oh, Sarah, we're calling you from the Brit Milah thanks to you. I'm like, thanks to me? What thanks to me? Wait, she gives me the mom on the phone. Sarah, thank you. I'm like, what are we talking about here? And she said, you don't understand. The day you had your Zoom, it was, because I was usually spoke around 12, 1 year, it was 9 hours ahead, so it was night. She said that night, she tried to have kids for over 10 years, 12 if I don't, not mistaken, 12 or 14, something like a big number like that. She tried everything, treatments, whatever, name it, she did it. She was so sad that day. She said, I'm going to watch the shiur. She was supposed to go to the mikvah, but she said, I'm not going. Enough. And she watched me talking about that story. And she called my mom. My mom answered, it was already like, 10:30 p.m. She said, Rabbani Lachiani, is it true, the story Sarah just said? She said, of course it's true. She said, I was supposed to go tonight to the mikveh, but I'm not ready, so maybe I'll come tomorrow. My mom said, no, you heard the story, you come tonight. She said, you're going to wait for me? She said, I'll wait for you. My mom told me they stayed until 1 a.m. or 2, I don't know, until she came, because she lived 30 minutes driving distance, and she had to get ready and whatever. By the time she went home, it was like 2 a.m., 9 months later, she called me to say thank you from the Brit Milah. How did I know from telling this story that someone else would have their light? You don't know. And that's what Lubavitcher Rebbe always used to say, says, you know Aleph Bet Gimel? Go teach Aleph Bet Gimel. It doesn't matter, and that's the Chanukah. Believe in yourself. Trust in yourself. Don't put yourself down. Believe in it and do act upon it. That's the whole thing. What's the mitzvah of Chanukah? There's a whole halacha question. If you light the Chanukah and the Chanukah, comment ça s'éteint?
It extinguishes.
Thank you, extinguishes. I was about to say turn off, but I thought it was the light. And what do? Halachically, did you fulfill your mitzvah or not? So halachically, it says, the answer is in the bracha. What's the bracha? Leadlik ner Chanukah. The mitzvah is what? To light the ner Chanukah, right? What happens after? It's like the oil. Not your problem. Your mitzvah is to light it. So the idea is that believe in yourself, but act upon it. Not just. And one advice I heard that really helped me in my life is, how do you push? Sometimes we go to a shiur and we're like, oh my God, so inspiring, amazing, wow, I loved it. You go home, one day later, you forgot everything that was said. How many times it happens to us? All the time. We laugh, we listen to something on, like, we have a small thing, a meaningful minute on Instagram, like, wow. The next day, we forgot. How do we actually keep this within us? Very simple. By taking a good decision on the spot. Like I say, for example, I remember one night I kept saying I want to give tzedakah every day. The Rebbe said it's very important to give a small. It doesn't matter how much you give something. And I kept saying I'm going to give tzedakah every day. Years, I kept missing it. One day I said, you know what, I heard something about tzedakah, how important it is and how much barachot it brings. I said, that's it, I'm doing it. That day I decided in my head, I made a decision. I go tomorrow to the bank, I make changes, I keep that in a bowl, in a place that I see all the time. I give tzedakah all the time. From that day on, I don't miss tzedakah. Like if I don't do it, I feel it, you know. Tzedakah protects me, I know that because I did it. Meaning you listen to something, you decide something good. Do something practical. Something doesn't have to be big. Don't make a mistake. One day it's enough. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be. And that's the idea of a Jewish person. That's why that's the miracle we celebrate, because your light can never be extinguished. Your light can only take a candle, try to push it. What happens? The flame goes up and up. Try, and the flame goes even higher. That's the idea. Is that you have to remember you can only and only and only go higher. You are Yehudi, you're Jewish. Reminds me of this story I heard from Uri Levin. I know you hear about him. The only hostage that was liberated, that escaped. Did you hear about him? Faraza?
No.
Go, you can actually tell his story in his house. You have to listen to that story. Uri Levin. I heard that story from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. And Uri Levin, he lived in Faraza. 6 a.m. he heard all the balagan that was starting, and he started looking at the chat and seeing people were saying we have terrorists in the house. So he didn't know what to do. He locked his house on all over. He locked his mamad, his like special room, and he had a bed there, and he went under the bed. And he stayed there for about 6 hours. He didn't move. The terrorists went crazy. If you look at his house, you can see only like impacts of the bullets. So many bullets, thousands of bullets, the whole house. They even threw grenades at him. They were so, like this beast. Like even a beast is a nice term for them. But they were so bad. They destroyed his house. And when they threw when they saw it wasn't coming out, they started, he smelled that they were like pouring something. They poured gasoline and then they lit his house on fire. And he understood at that moment that it cannot last. How long can you last? He took out, the cover of his like pillow, put it on his neck. He started to breathe like this to like save time. But they threw a grenade on the mamad, and that exploded a part of the door, and the fire started coming in the room. And at that point, he understood there's no choice. He has to get out. The window was like stuck. Finally, he opens the window, takes one leg out. He comes out of the window. 3 terrorists in Marshemam wait for him. One in Kalashnikov, one with a knife, and another one just screaming like crazy with une pelle. Yeah.
Weapons?
Come on, you're supposed to be my translator. Une pelle.
Sword? A sword.
A shovel. Thank you. A shovel. Yeah, it's a pen.
Shovel.
So one shovel, one a knife, one a Kalashnikov. And what do you do? He says, okay, I come in. It was high, the window. They pull him down like this, bam, on the floor. Now he's in his underwear. Nothing else. No socks, no shirt, nada. Underwear. He didn't have time to skin. He's in his underwear. And they start pulling him, and he's like thinking in his head, what do I do? What do I do? And what do you do? What can you do? Here the Kalashnikov, here the guy with the knife, here's the shower. And they, all three of them, they're like, speaking Arabic, Allah Akbar and whatever. And he understands that he's saying, we got a hostage, let's take him to Gaza. And they start pulling him to the border. And the border is really close to Kfar Aza, I mean. They're taking him to Gaza. But now, because they were so like thirsty for blood, the one with the Kalashnikov is going back. They look at him. He's submissive. He doesn't move, right? He gets transported by them. He doesn't say anything. So they're like, okay, we can handle him. The one with the shovel and the one with the knife. The one with the Kalashnikov runs back to kill, unfortunately, more people. And then they scream something. The one with the knife runs back with him. So now he's alone with the one with the shovel, who also had a gun, by the way. And he's like thinking, and then he understands. If they're taking me like into Gaza, it's over for me. And he's looking around, he sees the Kalashnikov, he's like very submissive, so the guy doesn't. And then suddenly the guy was like holding his hand, suddenly he's like, he lets his hands go and he starts sprinting like insane. He said, when you run for your life, how fast do you run? And he runs, and the guy is starting to shoot, and he calls the Kalashnikov and he calls the knife. But he knows that if he stops, he's dead. Man, where do you want him to go? It's full of terrorists. Where do you want him to go? He turns and he sees a bush. He goes inside the bush. Now, you can see in the video, he shows you the bush. Now, look, a guy in his underwear that was miscanned from the morning to like, it's already like what, 8 hours that now he goes into a bush. And he goes into the bush and he doesn't move and he goes like this in his underwear. He doesn't move for 3 hours. Try not moving for 3 hours. Doesn't. And he hears horrible things. Doesn't move for 3 hours. And after 3 hours, he hears Chayalim. He hears Hebrew. He understands that finally, someone is here to save them. But he knows that if he just comes out, they're gonna kill him. So what does he know? He doesn't know. He's like thinking, and then suddenly comes out of the bush and he says, Hani Yehudi! I'm Jewish! And he screams, I'm Jewish! And the Chayalim, they were about to shoot him and they hear I'm Jewish. And it startles them and they stop and they're like, save him. After one of the Chayalim said, when we saw an Ashkenazi guy in an underwear, we understood he wasn't a threat anymore. It's like, okay. But that was it. The guy screams, I'm Jewish. How many times we scream that? That's Chanukah. Chanukah, we say it proud. We say it loud. We go outside. That's a mitzvah. Mitzvah is go, take your light, share it with the world. Scream, I'm Jewish. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come and will save us. Be'ezrat Hashem. All the hostages come home. In good health, Be'ezrat Hashem, and no more death in Eretz Yisrael. We have the Mashiach with the peace. And we have Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf LeMoshe ben Nechama Dina.
And my husband's uncle Daniel ben Pejad and my grandma Yafa bat Sarah.
Amen. And I just want to add, sorry, I just remembered something I wanted to share quickly. If you look at the halacha of a mitzvah, when you want to know the essence, what it really means, you go into the halacha, and that's how you understand. If you look at the halacha of the lighting of the candles, the Torah tells us, the Gemara, whatever the wording that is used, is Ish ubeto. A man and his house. That's the mitzvah. And that's something very beautiful. Before you go and rush to light the world, start by doing ubeto, your home. Your home always first. Always comes first. Once you have that, you can go and lit the world. And that's why all the stories I know with my father that I tell you, my mom, it's not just the outside. I can tell you, for me, my dad was always Superman. One day, he lighted the candles, the public candle, and the person put the torch right next to his coat. And my dad's coat caught on fire. And I remember my dad running like a movie, jumping and throwing his coat. It was like really Superman. But the idea is that a man, you want to know his worth? Go check how he behaves in his house. Don't forget that sometimes we're so focused on outside and showing beto. The Gemara tells us, start in your house, and Be'ezrat Hashem, when you build that light, then it's going to explode and be shared with the world. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to.
Of course, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Go ahead.
Do you want to, can I stop the video?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.